Oops. Hey, 2 plus 4 times 5. Hey, Vale. It is time for Write Once, Read Many. And starting off with our new theme song here that we've got for the next several arcs, actually. So yeah. Hello. Hey, Greg. Yeah, I wanted to get a song just for the show. Oh, Vic is here. So I had one commissioned that was similar to what I was looking for, by my friend, Scarlett. And, yeah, I mean, she made it much faster than I thought she would. It was ready, like, practically 2 months ago, so yeah, really cool stuff. And it's going to be the theme from this sort of back half of Infestation all the way to the end of Arc 14. So, yes. Anyway, so as a reminder of the audience participation question, which I definitely didn't come up with this morning, it was, who's the character you had the most turnaround on how you felt about them in Parahumans? That's a good one here because a lot of people have very strong turnaround on their reaction to Rachel. Yes. Vic says, Scarlett's music, heart. And Vale had said, very cool. Yeah. It's it's basically like really, really similar to the source music that I had sent. It was really cool. Cause of course the songs I sent had kind of lyrics and stuff, and I asked for an instrumental, but it really just captured it super well. So very happy with that. Anyway, I'm gonna kind of, yeah, it is based off Fantagram stuff, as Vic says. Because I felt like there are a couple songs that really, like, embody Taylor's story that band has made. And obviously, they're just songs that are not about parahumans, but, you know. Anyway, so yeah, cool. The speed draw is almost over, but you can see it's a nice image of the Siberian grabbing up on Rachel, giving a little creep hug. The themes of this week's chapters: horror and control through fear. I think that's a lot of what happens. I'm sure there are more themes, but like both the first chapter, like there's horror from the perspective of being a civilian in Rachel's area, and then again from the side of Rachel at the Siberian being like this unstoppable weirdo. And then the control through fear is both directions as well, with one direction being Rachel controlling the civilian people through fear, and then it getting turned around on her with the Siberian. And I think that actually echoes well in the part where she's remembering her childhood. She attacks someone first, and then like later lives out the other side of the violence over and over again. Like not to say that one really begets the other, just like she's always on one side of the coin, then the other, is kind of like what happens in her chapter. And then we'll see the control through fear is pretty obvious with Jack and Theo. So I don't think I really need to explain that one as much. It's just direct. But moving in on 11.a, a howl tore through the air. It's Rachel's chapter, and what else would she be doing but riding with a pack of dogs through her territory? All the dogs start howling with the pack. She loves it, but it is loud as fuck. She doesn't have a couple dogs or a dog trio. She's got 8 dogs in addition to Bentley, who she's riding. She loves this shit. She's howling with the pack too. She's just like another one of the dogs. She loves the weird smells and feelings from riding the dogs. And she's been taking the opportunity of living without the other Undersiders to not wash herself so that she and her things smell more like her. And, her blood-smeared dogs. She's been taking care of herself, but not feeling like she needs to make concessions for other people, like, for example, the washing off the smell. What did some body odor mean, if she didn't even like the people who were around to be offended by it? So, continuing her trend of trying to sort of drive people away. We see that most of the interactions between Bitch and her new minions have boiled down to her setting them tasks in an attempt to drive them away. Despite her new powered subordinates Barker and Biter expecting to be in more of like a gang lieutenant role where they're in charge of people, she's set them the same dog care tasks that the other 2 unpowered caregivers have. So far, no one has complained, so she hasn't been able to drive anyone away, but she's certain it will happen soon. Let's see here. Rachel is determined that the dogs are the only ones she needs. The best, most loyal kind, is how she describes them as her companions. Let's see here. Between the moments of being fixated on other people and her inner turmoil, she's having fun laughing with the dogs and calling out to them as they run together and bond. And now she doesn't feel restrained. She can be bitch full time. She can fight anyone that falls into her wide swath of city, and she knows that she knows she's hurting people casually, but she thinks that they should know that this is her territory by now. If they're still here, they deserve what they got. Very reasonable. The pack finds Sirius, who is standing outside of an apartment block howling, to bring the others to him, and Bitch sets some of the dogs to guard and some of the dogs to sit and calm down. She incorporates training into all her outings with the dogs. The whole time, she's noting which dogs need more training, which ones are too slow to respond, all as she goes. And then she orders the dogs to attack the apartment block that Sirius was marking for them. And it's just like families and stuff in there, but she doesn't care. Anyone in her territory must go. Bitch hears a howl in the distance and realizes that the only other dog she has out tonight is Angelica. She's been powered up much larger than the other dogs, so she's just kind of on her own. She's permanently been injured by what happened to her in Arc 7 when Fog had hurt her. So she kind of does her own thing because she can't keep up with the rest of the pack. But whistling for the other dogs to exit the building and join her, Bitch climbs back onto Bentley and heads back to Angelica. And then she sort of thinks to herself, did any other people experience anything close to this? Did Taylor, Brian, Lisa, or Alec? She felt like she was one with Bentley. She trusted him, and he trusted her absolutely in return. It varied from one dog to the next, but the same was true with the others that were following Bentley's wake. They believed in her, and if they didn't love her yet, she knew it would come in time. With her patience and continued care of them, what did Lisa have that compared to that rush, this security? What did the others have? Why, Bitch wondered, are they happier than me? Unbidden, the answers came to mind. Greg says, oh no, she's a dog cult leader. She actually is, though. Now that I've never put it in those terms, but she kind of, yeah, she's like in like a violent cult at the head of her Doge army. So we start to go through a sequence of memories from her early life, as early as Rachel can remember. Her mom seems like she was probably an alcoholic and was definitely neglectful to the point that Rachel had to steal cash from her purse while she was passed out to buy food, or to try to steal food directly from people who were like partying and not paying attention when her mom would have people over at the house. And then in addition to not getting the food she needed, little Rachel had not gotten any of the nourishing parental love that children need. Children need like lots of directed attention for a long time, after they're born, for like years and years. And she didn't get any, and seemingly didn't have anyone in her life that she could remember who cared for her. So it's pretty bad. 2 plus 4 times 5 said, just teared up slightly at the why are they happier than me line. Every time it gets me. It always gets me. Well, that's good 2 plus 4 times 5, because we reads things to feels things. Anyway. So at some point, her mother didn't come home at all, and desperate with the situation, the still small Rachel couldn't bring herself to leave the apartment in case her mom came back to during that window of time when she was gone. After going through all the remaining food she could eat, she tried to cook rice. And she's still small enough that she needed to stand on a chair just to reach the stovetop. And in a cooking accident, she burned herself with hot water. It hadn't been boiling, but it still gave her minor burns, and her screaming had led to the neighbors calling 911. So at that point, she began going through the foster system. Throwing in some Kangaroo Jack slurs, as we know them, about the other kids she was homed with in the system. She reflects on it, and in the first home, there's a foster sibling who she attacks. Then she's moved to another home, and in the second one, there are 4 siblings, and then she says she went through 3 years of lessons on what she did to the other girl in the first home, with the roles reversed. Vale says, I think if I got to request a single interlude, it would be Rachel talking with the best therapist on earth, with a couple of years worth of gradual time skip involved. It could be pretty interesting, yeah. Unable to keep the feelings bottled up within her, she screamed until she couldn't breathe any longer. Then she took a deep breath and screamed again. Even though she screamed until it hurt, it was tiny and insignificant compared to everything she wanted to convey. Yeah, I really love that paragraph. It's super raw. She doesn't know how to express herself or have anyone she feels like that she can confide in anyway, even if she could. And she just screams and screams into the night. And all the dogs, they howl along with her, too, even when she's done, so. Yeah. And then her third foster home had been 2 siblings and a foster mother. She'd overheard the caseworker saying that the new foster mother would be a disciplinarian, the only person that might be able to turn Rachel into a civilized human being. Bitch suspects, probably rightly, that this had been retaliation by the caseworker for the problems that Rachel had caused. The new foster mother was terrible person who gave no love to the children in her care, and she would punish anything other than perfection. Never the carrot, always sticks. Rachel didn't have the tools to deal with the environment she was being put in between school, extra classes, after school, piano lessons, and being at home with the foster mother. Always expected to behave, to have an etiquette like that she didn't understand and couldn't like she was never taught how to act, and as well. So I mean, it's like on a lot of levels. It's kind of just cruelty for the sake of cruelty. Like, you've got to be perfect on a thing that I will not teach you. Um, you know. And this would cause cyclical conflicts that would escalate between her and her foster mother, as she would fight back and be punished, and, fight back more and be punished more. So, the only thing that helped keep her together, or helped her keep it together, rather, was that she found a stray dog, Rollo, who began to trust her, and eventually she brought him to the expansive backyard of the house and kept him chained up to a tree out of sight of the house. Rachel was starving herself to feed Rollo with her lunch money to buy scraps and stuff, and since she also frequently lost meals at home, then this meant that she was constantly hungry, and that coupled with waking up early in the morning to play with Rollo, secretly, meant that she was constantly tired and falling asleep in class, etc. Her health was probably terrible. But Rollo eventually escaped, and being agitated as he was for being tied up for so long each day, he was running around the yard, and he jumped into the pool in his newfound freedom. But being scared of the situation, he was too freaked out to get out of the pool, and he's swimming around, and Rachel's trying to grab him, but he's avoiding Rachel. And then the foster mother from inside the house uses the controls on the automatic pool cover to attempt dog murder. It's a slow fate that takes over a minute as Rachel's losing her mind, pleading with the mom, and part of the time she's trying to pull back the cover, and part of the time she's wailing on the door trying to get inside. But the foster mother just stares her in the eyes, stares her down, and this leads to her trigger event, which we don't see the trigger event because it's a memory, but and they get erased from your memories, but we see the aftermath, and using her power without knowing anything about it yet, Rollo is supersized and tears out from under the pool cover. He also tears into the foster mother, and when the other two foster children scream at what they're seeing, he charges in and gets them too. So Rachel runs away from the house, and the memories end. Oh, Greg says, Wildbow's really great at tugging at the old heartstrings, especially in backstory. Rachel, Rebecca Costa Brown, Ashley, and then, as I said in the listen party, I'm guessing that you had talked about various times in the listen party. And then Jack Slash, teacher, no, the greatest villain is right here. Wildbow. I mean, the foster mother. But I could say that Wildbow's the greatest villain of all for making us feel bad feelings. Her breath hitched as she drew... I hadn't pre-read that. Her breath hitched as she drew in a breath. She shook her head violently to shake away the tears. She had stopped screaming, but her dogs were making up for it as their voices had joined hers and continued long after she'd stopped, almost drowning out Angelica's howls. So many bad memories. Memories she wished she could purge from herself, scour from her brain, with fire and bleach and steel-bristled brushes. Yeah, pretty good stuff. I didn't want to sum that up. I wanted to... I think most of there's a lot of stuff in here that's just really powerful writing that I didn't think that I could super capture. And I did skip past a lot of it in terms of, like, not just pulling all the quotes, but had to pull some. And Vale had joked that he thought that Greg meant Rachel as the worst villain of all. Anyway. Rachel knows that she's unhappy because humans are pack animals like dogs, and she doesn't have anyone else like the others do. She also thinks about how she's not even like Alec, where he's a loner by choice. Rachel doesn't feel like she has control over her situation. Um, uh, sorry, I had to correct something on the doc. And like her friendships and normal interactions will always be beyond her reach because she can't understand the nuances of the way other people interact together. She decides she'll stick with what worked in the past. Violence, threats. It earned her respect, if nothing else. Yeah. So, because she has had, let's say, 100 too many experiences of the worst people have to offer, then she just dishes it right back out. Then another quote fest here. Even if she somehow got something right, she always managed to fuck it up sooner than later. So she thinks about Taylor's arrival and the friendship they were starting to have. Taylor had invited herself into that place, that void, and had stayed when Bitch fucked up. The scrawny kid had stood her ground instead of running when Bitch called her out on something. And maybe, just a little, in some small way, Bitch had gotten a glimpse at what she'd been missing out on. Only to find out it was a ploy, an act, so that Taylor could get in the group's confidence. So, Bitch is upset not only at Taylor, but also that the others forgave her too easily. She feels the betrayal a lot more, deep than they do, probably. But in addition to that, she knows that the others like Taylor. A traitor! More than they like her. That's pretty bad. Doesn't feel good. She wasn't there in Arc 2 when Brian had said that he would kick Rachel off the team to keep Taylor. But she knows or suspects that that's how they feel about her. So she doesn't even need to, hear them say it. Reflecting on when she had tried to get rid of Taylor by pushing her into the containment foam in Arc 10, she feels terrible about what she's done. Worse at her betrayal than accidentally killing people in the past. She hated herself for what she'd done to Taylor, and she didn't know what to do about it. So yeah, in addition to all of the life's pain and Brutus and Judas dying and 6 other dogs, she's just torn up about everything that's been happening. The only good thing in her life right now is running with the pack, But she hears a gunshot, and she's brought back into the moment. When she's doing things, she doesn't have to think about her emotional problems. She has all her dogs charge in. There's more gunfire. Angelica's getting shot at in her gigantic slow form, and even getting, hit. And Rachel notes that when she's really big like this, she's able to move without pain. Seeing Angelica get shot sets Rachel off, and she orders the dogs to fetch the people in the building. They come back with said people in their jaws, and some of the dogs aren't as good at not breaking people's bones as the other ones are, so people are screaming in pain, etc. The things you do when you get all your bones broke up. So, seeing the guy who was up in the window shooting down at Angelica, Bitch moves in toward him. He's swearing in pain, which she takes as him insulting her. He doesn't know how to deal with her, and she can't really read faces. So, or doesn't trust people even if she thinks she knows what they mean. So instead of trying to talk to the guy, she kicks him in the face. It's pretty cruel treatment of a prisoner, but it'll get worse before it gets better. The guy says that he has a family when he's pleading, which makes her angrier, and thinking that having a family doesn't make you a good person. It just gives you a captive audience. Although I don't think that's usually what people mean when they say they have a family. I think they mean like other people are relying on me, not I'm a good person. But, that's Rachel doesn't take it exactly the same way. So she kicks him in the stomach, which also pulls his arm the wrong way because his arm's stuck in the jaws of the dog. And then she continues to direct her long-term emotional pain she feels at random people by giving them serious injuries. She has Angelica slowly press down her giant paw on him. She's bothered by the idea, not by the idea that she's hurting someone, but by the idea that this is the only time that she's sure what someone means when they're talking to her. She kicks the guy in the kneecap to get him to extend his leg, and has Angelica take said leg into her mouth. And while Angelica is being used as a brutal instrument of torture, Rachel gives her a big hug and thinks about Brutus and Judas being gone. Her heart broke a little every time she thought about it. And this man, this family man, he thought he could take Angelica away from her? Yeah, so she definitely doesn't have the tools to deal with this situation, and orders Angelica to hurt him. Angelica bites his leg, splintering his bones, and the onlookers shriek as the man does. She orders the dogs to drop the captives at this point. Her little demonstration for the crowd is more or less over as far as she's concerned. She yells more at the crowd and asks why they don't understand that this is her territory. When a woman says that they didn't know, Bitch responds probably how she would have to almost anything. She takes it as a challenge, and then they start pleading with her more, and she says that if they can hear the howling, they're too close. You could probably hear that from halfway across the city. No fucking shit. It's pretty clear that Bitch is about to use another dog, Socks, to torture the woman who had been, basically pleading for mercy, to make an example of her when Brandish shows up and orders her to stop. So she also tells Glory Girl to call Panacea to the scene for emergency medical care of the civilians. But before she can even get all the words out, Bitch has already set the whole pack on them. Noting in her mind that after the mistakes she made in Arc 4, getting captured by the ABB, she hits first and assesses the situation later. They start to fight, and Brandish has, of course, her melee weapons made out of condensed light. They're all crackly and they burn things. But she can also turn into a defense form that's tough enough that the dogs can't bite through it. But when she's in that breaker form, she can't really do anything. She's like a beach ball-sized ball of orange-yellow light. I think she can kind of direct her momentum when she's hit, because Rachel thinks to herself that she, kind of helps her own momentum along. But I don't feel like we see that in other scenes, so I'm not sure. Anyway, Glory Girl is flying around, trying to both fight and call Panacea at the same time. Bitch is trying to figure out how she can win by analyzing what Glory Girl is doing. She, kind of figures out that there's, a timing to how Glory Girl is fighting. She doesn't know why she keeps retreating into the air and stuff. So, we get to see that, most people in most fights are, trying to reason through the fight. Probably not everyone, but, a lot of the people who don't probably die. Because Parahumans fights are so high stakes. Anyway, so, Rachel pulls something of a trick by powering up 3 of the dogs in, the moment that they're actually attacking. So they get bigger and faster as the attack starts. And Glory Girl and Brandish have to retreat. Brandish yells, for them to do so, and to save the wounded man at the same time. And knowing they can't fight 4 or 5 dogs each, they kind of each begin their retreat. And Glory Girl throws Roxy at Lucy, then flies for the wounded man. But then she stopped mid-flight. A woman stood over the man's mangled body, her hair blowing slightly in the wind. Or her long hair blowing slightly in the wind. Glory Girl looked over her shoulder to see the dogs, looked back to the injured man and the woman, then flew straight up, disappearing into the gloom of the night sky. So, Glory Girl, Victoria, had felt like she could contend with the dogs and save the man, but at the appearance of this woman, the Siberian, she immediately changes her mind and full retreats, just straight into the sky, as far as you can get. So, that sort of sets the scene a little bit. We know the Siberian is probably not to be trifled with, because, Glory Girl's kind of cocky. So, Bitch moves with the dogs over toward this strange naked woman with alternating stripes of black and white skin, and not in the colloquial sense, but like the Siberian tiger that she's named after. Bitch looks closer and realizes it's not painted on either. "Who the fuck are you?" The Siberian doesn't respond to her, moves over to the injured man. Like a real creep, she straddles him and she's touching his injuries and stuff. And then she Three Stooges his eyeballs and completely destroys his eye sockets and eyes. To which even Rachel is aghast. "Hey, fuck off!" Still not saying anything yet, the Siberian uses her understanding of body language to make Bitch feel more at ease. And after asking again who she is, the Siberian responds aloud, "Siberian." Everything she says is all whispery. Bitch says this is her territory, to which Siberian says that she'll leave, but she wanted to talk to Bitch. Talking, always talking. "Not interested. Go!" Bitch orders Lucy to attack. And when Lucy full force bites and nothing happens to the woman, she carefully stands up with her arm still in the dog's mouth, says Lucy is beautiful, and kisses her on the snout. But then in a very serious, authoritative way, "Your dog lets go of me now, or she gets hurt." She body languages the message across, again, able to communicate with Bitch, so Bitch backs down. The Siberian compliments the dogs, and then they come over and look at Bitch. When asked what she wants, the Siberian says that that she wants Bitch. She's like, "You." I mean, I guess she's a lot like Soldier Boy at this point. She's just, "You." But she was told to pick someone to test to join the Slaughterhouse-9, and she's chosen Bitch as her candidate. Bitch doesn't trust the Siberian, obviously, but is letting the conversation play out. She's not sure if she should run away or not, but decides to stand her ground for now. Then the Siberian hugs her, starts pitching to Bitch that she should just leave her friends, join the Slaughterhouse-9, and let loose for a while. Be an animal. Bitch is shooketh and thinks that this woman understands her, even suspecting it might be a power. "You're an animal, bitch." The woman gave special treatment to the last word. So the Siberian's body language continues to put Bitch at ease, leveling out how tense she is at the imminent death lady. And she essentially just says, there's too much talk. The Siberian says again to join them. She's saying stuff like her friends are going to leave her or try to cage her. She'll never be free unless she stops living like a dog and lets her true self out. You know, all the typical bad guy stuff. Ending their conversation, the Siberian says she's going to give her 2 gifts. One of them will be back at Bitch's den, and the other is that she's going to let Bitch be the only person to have heard her voice and still, be alive and not murdered. So then she suddenly leaps off toward Bitch's hideout, knocking the wind out of Bitch on the way. And when Bitch gets up, she climbs back onto Bentley yet again and orders all the dogs home, even at top speed. By the time they get there, the Siberian's already been and gone. Bitch's minions are hurt, but none of them have actually been killed, which I think we can count as a win. She ordered them to get their injuries fixed at a doctor, but not to tell Coyle or use his doctor. Even this is a good moment for another test for her new people. The present that left behind is a new dog with a note saying, "Are you a wolf or are you a dog?" Rachel can't read the note herself, but has someone read it to her. She clearly has some ability to read, but not much. She looked down at the wolf pup, who was still struggling to bite her fingers. She let it go, waited until it tried to attack her again, and pushed it down on its side once more. "Little bastard," she smiled. Almost without thinking about it, she used her power, just the smallest amount. Was it easier with him? What did that mean? Yeah, pretty good chapter. As for final chapter thoughts, we see into the mind of yet another Undersider. This is the 3rd one so far, aside from Taylor. She's a bit less of a shock than Alec in terms of her inner world. This chapter might come as a bridge for readers who hadn't connected with Rachel so far to see from her point of view and understand where she's coming from. Although her reactions to things can be frustrating to some people and actively counterproductive to her own happiness and safety, everything she does makes sense and is stemming from a character like reason and motivation. It all makes sense from her character's point of view and the options that she feels like she has in a given situation. So, yeah, pretty good. And I think this is one of the best interludes in terms of getting you into the mind of a character. I feel like most people write off the way that Rachel tortures the guy and was clearly going to torture another woman in this chapter in a way that they definitely wouldn't with other characters. I like Rachel too, but I'm definitely not a Rachel stan in the way that I hear most people kind of talk about her when they talk about parahumans. Because also, her power is kind of a little inherently cruel with the dogs and all that, so, that sucks. Oh, and there's a funny thing on the audiobook for this one, where the narrator says, "Bitch," again from an outtake after the normal chapter outro stuff plays. It's just kind of funny, because I'm sure she had to say bitch like a million times, so she had some funny outtakes to pull. And that's about that for my thoughts on that chapter, I think, because I've talked about it a bunch. Yeah, loving it. Let's start up the speed draw for the next one. Boop, boop, boop. And for the people who aren't as familiar with Vic's art, I think that this image is the one that, more than any of the others so far, reminds me of her normal art style. So it's interesting for that reason, if not just for the content. But I mean, it's also cool just for the content. So 11B. And this is a little bit of assistance from Vic. Theo is anxiously staring at the blank TV, while Jack Slash holds his baby sister, Aster. After getting bored of her, he tosses her to Theo, who barely catches her and tells him she needs changed. During this whole scene, Theo is like constantly on like full edge for obvious reasons, and he is just like staring and staring at the TV for right now until Aster is thrown. Theo's trying to stall the situation by telling Jack about his family, and Jack talks about how he actually knew Theo's dad, Kaiser. They had met before when Jack had been in the city. He was the only guy who would look him in the eyes. So he decided not to kill Kaiser on that day. There's a little anecdote in here about how the Teeth had hired the Slaughterhouse 9 to kill members of the Protectorate, and they had done the job, and then they came back and wiped out the Teeth also, just because no one tells us what to do. The Slaughterhouse 9 are real assholes. So Jack moves on and has Theo guess why he's there. Theo properly guesses that he's there for Aster. And he takes Theo to the bathroom of Caden's apartment and shows him the bathtub with Oni Lee bleeding out. Jack says he's nominated Oni Lee for the Slaughterhouse 9, but even before the test, Jack realized that Oni Lee was too boring and essentially an empty vessel. As soon as he realized that, he decided he wasn't cut out for the group. So he fought Oni Lee. Oni Lee tried to do stuff, but he failed. Jack tells Theo that as soon as Purity enters the apartment, he's going to kill him and Aster in front of her, so that he can watch her face as the life drains out of them. Theo politely lets Jack know that he'll be killed in return, which Jack quickly dismisses. He's unimpressed by Purity. As Jack monologues, Theo begins to cry a little bit and holds Aster tight. Jack asks Theo who he is and tells him if he gives him a good enough answer, he'll give him a quick death and let him take a shit beforehand. Theo tells him he wanted to be a superhero and fight people like Jack. He knew he would probably get powers because his father had powers. Jack finds this idea entertaining, and even more so when Theo says that he'd kill people like you, sir. As Jack continues monologuing and laughing at Theo, Theo sees his phone light up on the table behind Jack, meaning that Caden was calling him to open the lobby door and help with the groceries. With his interest piqued, Jack decides to offer Theo a deal. Theo agrees, as there's really no other option. Oh, and this is when it sort of swapped back to me. Jack asks how old Theo is. He says he's 15, and Jack says that he's got 2 years to get powers, level up all his skill points and his stat points, and then take out Jack. If he doesn't do this, Jack is going to kill 1,000 people. I'll even break my usual rules to get the body count that high. So it's something special beyond my usual habits. Maybe a bomb, maybe poison. I'll come up with something. I can target the people you love, those you're closest to, people you've affected. Aster can be the 999th, and you'll be the 1,000th. Perfect. Theo takes the deal. I mean, honestly, Jack would definitely just do all this shit regardless, so he'll go with it for now. Caden comes home asking where Theo's been, and he manages to keep her from starting the fight that would get her killed. She almost immediately, lashes out and blasts Jack. But Jack had known some stuff about her power, and he'd done some research beforehand. See, he's really good with the whole powers thing. he knows that purity runs on sunlight, and between the endless clouds post-Leviathan and her expending so much power, he's pretty sure he'll be able to kill her before she light splatters him onto the walls. But he also likes the idea that there's a little risk involved. Otherwise, it wouldn't be fun. So, Jack explains that he'll be going now, and she lets him pass. Theo is overwhelmed by the burden. Theo handed Aster to her mother. He felt dazed at the magnitude of what faced him. 2 years. Yeah. Pretty short summary, especially compared to the Rachel chapter. But aside from running out of time, it was already going to be a bare bones thing anyway. I've always found this chapter, a lot of words are used to not say that much. And I think that's kind of what Jack brings to the table. And because of the, anxiety paralysis that Theo feels, a lot of the stuff, every moment is expanded really far. So as far as just a description of the events, almost nothing happens. It's all very, it's very tense, and I like that aspect of it. I think the chapter's got a really good tone. But it's missing something. It is just not quite up to snuff, in my opinion, with some of the really, really high-end chapters in this half arc. And there are kind of a couple other ones that I don't like so much as well. It's kind of a hit-or-miss arc, but regardless, focusing on 11B, this is one of the few times we get to see from an unpowered character's perspective. The ones we've seen so far are Danny and a dog. We saw from a dog's perspective. And yeah. Vale says this is one of my favorites, 11B. Yeah, it's not to say that you're wrong for liking it. It's just for me, it's not as up there. So, we're gonna run into taste differences along the way. I'm definitely sure. And it's also a lot shorter than the Rachel chapter. I think it's less than half as long. So, aside from many structural reasons, I had a lot to say about one and not that much to say about the other. So I feel bad. I feel like I've given it a bit of a... I've shortchanged it a little bit. But, what I can do is, as I read this arc stuff that I had written down, Vale, if you want to talk about the chapter and why it is good, I will definitely read out whatever you have to say. So, just up to you. So for arc stuff, the whole arc is chapters that are from different points of view, each of which have one of the Slaughterhouse 9 members. There are 8 of them right now, and as an introduction, they all have different weird horror chapters that let you familiarize yourself with the characters and the tone that's associated with each of them. Probably good to let all of them have their own moment like this, because they would probably blur into one big mass for a new reader if they didn't get their individual introductions. Some of them probably would have felt like they never got the spotlight or anything. Because there are going to be a couple of the Slaughterhouse 9 who are much more foregrounded than the others. But 11A starts with Rachel as a point of view, so we're seeing from someone we already know quite well from the outside, and maybe recontextualizing things, but we're not even really learning anything new about her. We're just learning the same things from her perspective, and it's much more powerful from her perspective than it is from, like, I don't know, for example, Brian saying, oh, she was in the foster care and it was really bad. And, like, we can intellectually know it was really bad, but probably not feel it on the same level as when we read this chapter. And then 11B dips its toe a little further into the water, and we see from a perspective of someone we're aware of and we've seen before once, but we don't know much about, and it introduces Jack Slash, someone who is unnerving to be around due to his casual murderousness, and we'll get to see 6 more little pieces like this. Kind of a mixed bunch, like I was already saying. Some really, really good ones, and then some others that don't really land with me. But and we've already started with that, like as previously stated. Something good about both chapters, for sure, though, is that they seed a lot of future stuff for, like, story conflict, for, like, character beats, plot lines, all that. And they lay the groundwork for that. And it's not like short term, not like next arc only or like the next couple arcs. Like, things that are set up in these 8 chapters will just reverberate for the rest of the story and pay off in major ways till essentially the end. And I don't think we see Taylor a single time in the 8 chapters. So it will be like, it's the longest break from her, I think, in the entire book. Maybe arc 17 is longer or something, but I haven't looked at the word counts. But it's just this huge gap from when we last saw Taylor, very hopeful, to when we see her again 6 chapters from now, you know. So yeah, I think it's good at setting up what the arc is like and how it's going to be, like, really differently toned vignettes, etc. But moving on from the arc stuff to the characters. Rachel, she is actively trying to push people away, intentionally. So, you know, that's where she's at. She doesn't trust anyone. She's constantly testing her minions, making them, like, jump through hoops of approval to even stay. And, you know, she's not, like, clearly defining anything. They've just managed to avoid her, like, upset wrath through, like, large part luck, I would say. And they're probably trying really hard not to piss her off. And then, let's see here. Yeah, I talked about Rachel a whole bunch, so I'll move on to the various dogs. We got Bentley, Lucy, Ink, Magic, Roxy, Buddy, Bruno, Socks, Sirius, and Angelica. So we'll know some of the faces that we're going to see in the next while as far as the dogs go, because we knew that Brutus and Judas were gone, and that 6 other dogs, who were named, but only after the fact, died in the Leviathan fight. The dogs are used as I said earlier, brutal instruments of torture. And it would have gone on longer had she not, you know, been interrupted, basically. Random citizens. They probably don't like Rachel very much, I would imagine. It's gotta be pretty scary to be living in, like, the worst city in the country and also attacked by giant random dogs. So that's great. They're having a tough time. Moving on to Victoria. We don't get that much, like, character from her, but we'll see the other side of this phone conversation, I guess. And so while they didn't get much to do here, it's a little short-term setup and payoff. And Carol as well. We get a little more from her, like ordering Well, I guess, what we do get from Victoria is that when something's really, really bad and dangerous, she knows to call it quits and run away. Um, and Carol, not afraid to slash a dog with a big lightsaber. The Siberian, first meeting this character who will be a medium-term antagonist who will see kind of a lot of real weirdo, real creep, in many ways as unpredictable as Jack. But, yeah, we see this new dog, Bastard, and, Bastard's probably a lot of people's favorite character. Both a dog and a wolf. We see very little of Rachel's minions, but we do know that they at least nominally agree to not tell Coyle, or at face value they say they won't. For Theo, we basically re-meet Theo because we've only seen him in one very short scene previously. We already knew that he was Kaiser's son and Purity's stepson, and right here we see that he wanted to be a hero. He tries to stand up to Jack. He's can't help but be stuck to his basically programming from his dad to call adult men sir and refer to them as his betters and stuff. Real beaten down by life, this kid. But he does his best to save Aster, the baby. And apparently he and Caden and Aster have been living together in her old apartment, which was more or less undamaged by the Leviathan attack, so she kind of lucked out. And then we see Caden, who is willing to back down against Jack, luckily for her and Theo and Aster. We briefly see the corpse of Oni Lee. Jack says that he doesn't need him to be alive, just to be fresh. And on first blush, you might think that he's bringing Oni Lee to be a snack for the Siberian, but later we will see it's much, much worse. And then Jack, we learn about Jack. Very full of himself, real talky type, wants to tell you his whole plan, and then, murder you. Or, murder someone you like and, injure you in a really crippling way. He really likes, pain and torture. He's I'm sure that there's some case to be made for someone else, but he's a pretty irredeemable villain. He's got a lot of misdeeds under his belt, and he never shows remorse. So, he's a real douche. Yeah, and that's kind of all I got for the characters section. Moving on to the powers, knowledge, and world building. She hopped down from Bentley's back and used the back of her hand to wipe away some of the sweat, mucus, and blood that had transferred from his back to her inner thigh. I just thought it was funny how gross it is. Parahumans shows a lot how, the powers are fucking gross. It reminds me of, what do you call it? Of Made in Abyss, the anime. How, they go spelunking into this terrible cave, and it's gross down there. It's really gross. And I think a lot of settings are just sort of clean for the convenience of it. But let's see here. I skipped it on the actual chapter part, but Rachel thinks through her routines with the dogs, making sure they're healthy, grooming them, sometimes shaving them, going through their medical records, cleaning them, checking for ticks. Now that she's got all these extra people, she sets them to do that too. She tracks their shit, which probably the other people wouldn't be so good at. They're not super naturally good at shit checking. And she is able to see a lot about whether a dog is happy and healthy from them poops. The second stuff is all about training. She makes sure they all kind of train, and it's much easier for her to train them because she'll do it in a group environment where she's using mostly dogs who already know commands and some dogs who don't, so that it really quickly imprints the different behaviors on them. And she even thinks about how easy that it is, and then she kind of thinks about how she and she talked about this in Arc 7 about Sirius, but how she slowly applies her power a little bit at a time when she's training the dogs, so they get used to it, because it can be like weird and uncomfortable at first, but then they like it when they're big. But they're also like clearly dangerous, too dangerous to be untrained. And she's kind of getting mad reckless. I should have said this in her character section, actually, but so jumping back to Rachel, she's getting mad reckless. She didn't take extra dogs out before because she was worried about hurting people because they weren't trained well enough, and now she's just like, screw it, screw all these people. We'll just dog bite them all to oblivion. So, she's going buck wild. So, Rachel seems to have a better connection with this new doge she got, who is actually part wolf, than any previous one. So that's interesting. And the Siberian seems to be the most immovable object that we have seen so far in Parahumans up to this point. Even Alexandrian legend got knocked around by stuff. Or, not legend, Leviathan. Even Leviathan, I think even Scion is shown to get knocked about a little bit. So, she is, even for a superpowered being, unnaturally tough and difficult to move. Jack, this guy seems to really know powers. He really just sets up a situation where he's pretty sure he'll win against Purity, who is admittedly a fairly strong, dangerous, ranged and fast cape. And he's just like, nah, I got this. So moving on, I think, from the powers, knowledge, and world building section, we are going to do the audience participation question. In this set, it was, who's the character you had the most turnaround on how you felt about them in Parahumans? And Greg starts with a great answer, Goddess. When I first heard about her, I was like, wow, she sounds awful. Then I met her, and I couldn't have been more wrong. So that's a joke answer for those who know the character. Vale says, I want to answer this twice. First, as a reader to this point, it was definitely Rachel. She starts out as this vicious, brutal person, and but there is this possibility that she can grow out of that based on the story to this point. And her backstory is so rough, it made me want her to have something better. And then, second, as a multiple-time reader of Worm, my first read, I was completely on board with Hero Taylor and didn't give any weight to her shortcomings and villainous behavior. But by the time I had read a few times, I now read this as a story of a deeply hurt person who is legitimately labeled villain. Too complicated to answer in one paragraph, but my view on who Taylor really is and how I feel about her changed the most over multiple reads. Greg says, real answer, Arms Master, with a spoiler tag. I'll just read the at the start part. At the start, he's a real bastard, a self-righteous cop who believes that what he's doing is good when he's doing serious harm. Yep. And then 2 + 4 × 5 said the protagonist of Ward. I'm not going to spoil anything, but like when I heard who it would be, I was not looking forward to Ward. But then I was proven wrong many, many times. Cool. My own answer. Who did I turn the most around? Probably, I think I expected it, but still Armsmaster. So I think I'm on board with Greg. And then for next week, speaking of Armsmaster, the audience participation question from Vic is how dare you? And that's the question for Armsmaster. But in terms of real questions, I would like to say and I didn't have one prepared as I butted up against time while still writing. This might have to be another week where I write it afterwards. Hopefully this time I will do it today and not in a week from today. But it is me we're talking about here. So, you know. I am going to read the links and so forth as I do for the outro. And then I'm going to let the entire version of the other song, because there's 2 versions of the song, and I'm going to let the entire second one play out. So, the music used in the episode by our friend Scarlett, who's going for this electronic music as ScarlettXOX. This song is called Infestation, and Scarlett wanted me to link her Twitch. Her Twitch is twitch.tv/ScarlettRogue. Scarlett_ROGUE. Our Discord link can be found in the description of both the stream and the YouTube channel. The author of the work being discussed can be supported on Patreon at patreon.com/wildbow. The full text of the work is available for free online at parahumans.wordpress.com. And there is also a fan-made audiobook of the entire work at audioworm.rain-online.org. Vil says thanks as always, and I'm going to start up that full version. So bye, folks. Goodbye. I'm going to mute myself.